on during the course of the conference. This is then, in terms of the different research legs, this streams, as we've called it. It is the fourth one, and it deals with the whole question of, in looking into the future, we've explored the future, the changing world of work. We said in order to engage that world, we need a moral values, ethical base from which to operate. And then we've looked at the type of response that we have to give to this world in order to be future fit. This session, in a sense, is the counter side to the response, to say, what capabilities do we require, and accompanying the capabilities, the education, training, and development that need to happen around future fit IOPs. So I would like to welcome the team that was led by Charlene Titus, with Natasha Stark as an associate assistant, ably assisted by Lynette Zabiza, to share with us what the outcome of their future search was around our capabilities, education, training, and development for future fit IOPs. Over to you, Charlene and team.
Morning, everyone. Natasha, you may start.
Thanks, Charlene. Thanks, Theo. Firstly, welcome to everyone. We're glad to have you with us this morning. What our talking points this morning are really going to be an introduction, an overview of the research, our research focus, which is on an excellence framework, IOP capabilities framework, and a professional maturity curve. We'd then like to interact and get some input from the group. And the next steps will be to wrap up and decide where we take this further. Like, if I look at it for me, if I look at all the skills that are needed to be future fit and the pace at which work is changing, it often feels like I'm on an express train, which is sometimes quite overwhelming. So I think if we can start just as a check-in, can you put in the chat how you're feeling with the changing skills needed in the world of work? If you just put in the chat one word describing where you're at the moment. I see excited, inadequate, overwhelmed, anxious, always trying to catch up, definitely. It's like, am I on the train or have I not yet boarded? Mixed feelings, behind, like I'm running after the train. I can relate to that. Frustrated, lots of excited, thriving. That's great. So I think there are what I see is a lot of mixed feelings coming through there. And we'd like to share with you a video that Charlene put together that perhaps describes how we're feeling at the moment.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Natasha. And I was saying, you know, this morning, thanks, Natasha, I see it was quite a powerful experience, you know, when one goes through so many challenges, you know, especially also at a personal level, given COVID and how our families has been impacted, and we still had to deliver. You know, we needed to write thesis and graduate and doctorate and whatever, you know, books and stuff. So, you know, we know that life is difficult. And this morning I woke up with no voice. So forgive me if I start coughing, or if, you know, I hand over to Natasha to carry on. But what I'd like to say is, you know, introducing this great team, really, you know, if one feels vulnerable, then, you know, you can really leverage from numbers. And in front here, you see the great team that you've already met over the last 3 days. So Natasha, you can move the slide. So we started out with 5 work streams led by Theo Felsman. And the first work stream looked at the changing world of work. IOP, the second work stream, moral values and ethics. And the third work stream looked at the IOP response. And the fourth one was our work stream. We looked at capabilities, education, training, and development of IOPs. And the fifth work stream, which you will see a little later today, is the work stream of led by Crystal and supported by Beatrice on IOP research. And we're hoping, you know, from all of these work streams that we can get to the next steps. So our research culminated in a book, which we published in November 2021. And we believe that this research, this book, serves as a travel guide in IOPs for the future world of work. So today's session is really to focus and leave with a high level answer or model or new thoughts that we can take into the next steps. Digging a little bit deeper into the purpose of our research was, you know, we looked at a high level overview of what is covered based on an excellence requirements for the IOP Future Fit. And this profile we also looked at philosophies, principles, implications, engagement, guidelines, and responsible parties. And we then developed a maturity curve, which we'll see later. But let me just spend a little time on just the previous slide, Natasha.
Okay. Sorry.
We used an outside-in approach. It's an holistic profile, as you can see in front of you, looking at you know, our career navigation, our capabilities, our education, and our professional maturity curve. And it is anchored in 4 key corners, I would say, our contextual fit, our IOP purpose, our identity, and our ethics. So then on the next slide, you know, we move towards a profile of what that IOP capability model would look like. And we you know, landed on personal attributes and abilities. And this talks to really who am I as a person, our frame of reference, you know, what do we believe, what are our beliefs, our values, our principles, our knowledge, expertise, and skill, you know, what do we know as an IOP, what don't we know, and where are our gaps possibly. Our personal, interpersonal, and organizational relationships. How do we show up? You know, how do we engage our stakeholders, and our leadership abilities? You know, what is our style? You know, what style works in different contexts, and then our overall conduct as an IOP. So this question then, you know, begs to, and you can see in the book. We've actually unpacked these capabilities quite a lot. So if you want to read more about the capabilities, then, you know, you can go to page 130 in the book. It's in table 5.1, but it's extremely holistic. And I think that was the richness of the research and the contributions made by fellow IOPs when we you know, had the focus groups originally. So then on the next slide,
okay.
I will hand over to Natasha to share with you the capabilities, the maturity model.
Thanks, Charlene. What we also recognize that at different levels of one's career, we need different skills and to use those different skills in different contexts. So we use the professional maturity curve as really an approach to professional growth, which is career progression to manage each level of complexity, with the levels being about 3 to 5 years between the next one. So we thought that as we move up the level, so the challenges become more wicked, and we've also allowed for a dual career hierarchy to accommodate both people who want to go the leadership management route and people who are more specialists but also want to grow their careers and develop in an organization. And we feel this would facilitate the shift from career management to career navigation. We're now I'm going to hand over to Lynette for a bit of discussion and a bit of feedback to look at our own capabilities and do some self-reflection on Mentimeter. Okay. Looks like Lynette's not there.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay, super, glad to see you. Okay, Lynette.
I was speaking to myself. But yeah, we're going to do a short exercise whereby we look at, given the implications for me as an individual IOP, how must I get myself future ready and fit? So the question you're going to answer on the Mentimeter is, where are my capability gaps? So you will provide a one-word answer, and you're allowed to enter about 5 gaps that you may enter. So I'm just going to share the screen. You will get the code on the slide that I'm going to share. Tash, may you please stop sharing on your side?
Natasha, would you be so kind as to stop sharing your screen?
I lost electricity there for a moment.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks.
So the poll is open. You'll just share one-word answers in terms of your capability gaps, and you're allowed to enter about 5 gaps that you would have identified. The code is right there on top as well. You just type www.menti.com and use the code there that is given on the screen.
Okay, so Lynette, I think you did set it to results are hidden. So I don't know if you want to now save and then share. So we can have a quick few moments just to talk about what we see. Thank you. You can continue to add to the group. There's still, the Menti is still open. So we can see in front of us. So what does this picture tell us? If anyone wants to unmute themselves, I see Beatrice mentioned in the chat, AI, and Ashley says counseling modalities, but also neuroscience, big data. If anyone wants to unmute themselves, we invite you to, what is the picture you see in front of us?
I see, for one, Charlene, quite diverse skills.
Lynette, maybe you can put it, you can close it now, otherwise it's going to move. We have
All right.
25 people who contributed.
All right.
For those who still want to contribute, please feel free to put your responses in the chat. So fascinating, right? And obviously, the biggest, just to explain how Menti works, the biggest one in the center is usually the one people put in the most. People voted for the most. So we have, we have counseling, research, technology. Lynette, you've moved it. It's okay. It's technology is the biggest one. We understand, Lynette. Yeah, you can go into present mode, Lynette. Good.
All right.
So does that, to the group, can I ask, does this look like a valid picture of the kind of capabilities and skills, I would say, that IOPs need to learn? And, if so, then why are we not making this more urgent? Where does it start? Who is responsible?
Charlene, I'm just going to take a plunge, and although I'm not taking responsibility for my current employer, so I'm not sure if I should speak on behalf of my current employer, but and I'm just
Beatrice, the session is being, sorry for interrupting, Beatrice, the session is being recorded.
I know, that's why I'm just saying nothing. So I think the great thing about the project, and especially your particular focus area, is that we need to start looking at this capabilities model and these capability gaps and start getting them into the curriculum. At least that's one place where we can start. So coming back to your question is to then say, but these issues are sort of like being raised here because we may not yet have successfully addressed them in the curriculum. Meaning, I don't want to make it sound like it's a bad thing. It's just that with this information, we need to sort of like go back and say, well, okay, where can we fit this in? But then maybe we can start building these capabilities outside of universities as well. So, but yeah, just my 2 cents.
Okay, Natasha Winkler's hand is up, and then Theo. So Natasha, you can go.
Thanks, Shadeen. Yeah, I think, sorry, I can't see myself, so I hope you can see me. I just want to echo what Beatrice was saying in terms of who is responsible, and I definitely think it's very much a collaborative approach. So we can't just look at the formal education providers and skills providers. There must be much greater partnerships between the different role players. And then I just want to make a comment around the technology thing that is always at the center. And, I always ask myself the question, you know, where do we draw the line? Are we trying to become experts on everything? And it's something that I was thinking about as well when Etienne was speaking in the previous section around neuroscience. And I have all these questions of young professionals asking me, how do we learn more about neuroscience? And, you know, for me, it's more around, we have to understand how do we apply ourselves through these different lenses. So we shouldn't aim to become experts in everything. So if you think about technology, we're not looking toward becoming programmers and understanding the hardware. We have to know how to work with it and how it influences what we do. Similarly with neuroscience, I mean, we shouldn't aim to become neuroscientists and speak like Etienne, but we should understand the implications of that and then how you apply it. So for example, the lens that Ingrid uses with applying organizational neuroscience to the work of OD. Thanks, Shalene. Just 2 thoughts from my side.
Thanks, Natasha. Yeah, you can't be everything. However, you know, if you look at the trends, which is the session we'll share later, and I'm not doing a marketing stint here for us, Natasha, but, you know, we've done quite a lot of research around trends. These are very much top trends. In fact, search engine SSO for an IOP and for an HR professional is trending. So I suppose there's views, you know, that differs, but you know, I don't have the answer why the views are differing. Theo, you had your hand up, and then there's a few comments as well.
Two comments on this word cloud. Firstly, I think for what's intriguing to me is the mix between, can I call it, hard competencies, capabilities, and soft capabilities. And the universities have always been good at the hard stuff, not so in training for the soft stuff. So I think there's an important indicator to universities. How do we groom the attributes as in per your model and grow it in the IOPs we deliver? Secondly, and I'm building on what Natasha said about, you know, this dilemma, you can't be the super person covering everything. And for me, that word there on the bottom right-hand side, collaboration, actually should sit right at the center. It means that we have to be able, you know, the T model of skills, we know where we specialist and we know where because we have a general insight into the other disciplines that should complement us, that we should be able to collaborate. That becomes a very important capability for me, and we should also then teach that at university and already start working with like data engineers and artificial intelligence colleagues, students in other places. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Theo. And there are some great comments in the chat as well. You know, Sharon refers to the systemic issue, but also, you know, she agrees that where do we draw the line? Also, there's some comments around big data, AI being important, and in the next session you'll understand why it's important, because we're referring to a case in a way to share with you why those are such important skills. But Crystal's hand is up. Let me hear what she says, and then we'll go to the next exercise. Crystal?
Thank you, Shalene. It's just an observation that I've made, and I've been aware of this for quite a while now. Is we say a lot about the kind of skills that we need, skills gaps and those kind of things. But for me, a critical skill that actually preempt the actual addressing these skills gap is the institutional gap or capability of addressing the skills gap. And I don't think we often actually pinpoint that as a huge constrainer in addressing these gaps, because the institutions, especially higher education, they're too slow to react and too slow to address the critical needs as we need them right now. So by the time, you know, we're having this initiative now, we've addressed several issues and we've identified several core competencies and so on. But by the time higher education is geared to address that, we will be on a complete new set already. And that's the problem. So it's the institutional ability to address this gap for me that it also needs to be addressed.
And I think, thank you, Crystal. I think that something similar to what Ramona is suggesting, you know. But I think if you look at the trends and you look at what new roles and, you know, jobs are becoming available, then I think you know, maybe you don't need an IOP to deliver on an AI module at university. Let's just put it that way. Or maybe you're lucky and you get an IOP who's a practitioner who also gets the AI and, you know, all the tech stuff quite extensively, but hasn't got the depth of or the years of lecturing experience. So I think it's about our ability to be wise, I suppose, and also agile, because I think the skill is there. In the, you know, it's not difficult to find the skill, but then I suppose it's also whether we are open for that kind of multidisciplinary collaboration that some of our colleagues have already mentioned. So thank you for that. I think we're ready to go to the next exercise. I see the hands are still up, but they are old hands, figuratively and literally speaking. So I'm not going to... Crystal, Theo, and Natasha, your hands are up. Thank you very much. So we'll go.
Who are you calling old?
I said old hands. Oh, cold hands. Okay, let's go to the next one, Lynette. So there's another question that we want your feedback on. And this question is, it's the next one, Lynette. So we wanted some feedback on the professional maturities curve, you know, and if you listen to Natasha Stark's explanation, then, you know, we looked at complexity of work and experiences, you know, when did you finish uni and start working, and what kind of work do you start doing as an IOP? So level 1 at the top is consultant, lecturer. Level 2 is senior consultant, associate professor, and senior lecturer. And so we kind of took the two streams from the book, as we wrote it in the book. You know, there's an academic stream, and then there's also a scientist practitioner kind of model. So if you can then choose, you know, where do you fit onto this model? So you'll go back into Menti, and you will grab your cell phone, go back into Menti, and then the code is 85119169. It's on top. Can Okay, I think we've got, how many votes have we got, Lynette? Can you look at how many votes we've got in? Like there's a pop-up there, I can't see, Lynette. Are you on mute, Lynette?
No, I am on. I'm just trying to check on my phone. Check.
Okay, but we can see, you know, there's a picture emerging here. And I think this is about right, you know. We shouldn't feel that we can't all be at a level 5, right? We can't all be at a level 1. It's interesting though that the senior consultant, associate professor is ranking at the top. It does tell us though, you know, where are our gaps. You know, if should we want to, something happened there now, Lynette.
I'm not sure what happened. Oh.
Okay, I think that, Lynette, if you can get it right, it's fine, but don't worry because we know that everyone get anxious with technology, so it's okay. If you can get it back, that will be great. But otherwise, I think from my memory, you know, thought leader was ranking least. Senior consultant is ranking tops, and then consultant was second. You know, so there's a lot of people that's still at level 1, and then level. Okay, here it is back. But I think this is probably now from the additional voting.
Yes.
It's additional few votes. Does anyone want to comment? I think barring this is now not the right one. I think maybe the other data hasn't been saved. But does anybody want to comment on this, Theo?
I think for me, the biggest thing, and I made a chat there, put a comment in the chat box, is how do I judge myself honestly and truthfully at what level I am, and how do I assess what it will take to get me to the next level? I think there's still a lot of work to be done in this space. And I think we all face that challenge during the course of our career, is where am I at which of those levels, and what will it take to get me to the next level? And am I truly at the next level? You know, we all kind of like to bluff ourselves sometimes, which is quite human.
Yeah. Absolutely. So sorry about this is definitely not the right picture. You know, we had a majority votes in already, and we know that thought leader was ranking at 5th. And then second was actually consultant. So it was senior consultant, then executive consultant, and then thought leader. So let's end this Menti. The next part of this dialogue is really to, you know, take away the deck really, and to say figuratively and literally, to take away the, you know, the fears of making comments and giving inputs. We really want you to unmute yourself, share with us your thoughts. You know, if not, I will draw on the comments and ask people to unpack a little. Sharon, I see you've said a lot. Maybe if you'd be brave enough, courageous enough to get, you know, some group reflections going for us.
Thanks, Shalene. I think for me, as the conversation was going, I wondered about a discussion that was held a while ago about general psychology. So if we enter the profession as generalists, right, just like in the medical fraternity, and then you specialize into different, you know, categories later on, because we do work in, we understand behavior in the workplace. Let me put it like that. And in understanding behavior in the workplace, there's so many tentacles that draw from that. So do we become generalists in understanding? Do we apply, like what Natasha was saying, how does our education go? Do we need to bring in more practical application to make our relevance even more? So I think there's so much scope. And as IOPs, our identity is always in question, and it's been a long going conversation of who are we actually? What do we do? But I think the practical application is needed. And if at our core, we're saying behavior is where it's at. So if we're saying humane workplaces is what we do, then how does that show up in terms of policy? How does that show up in terms of the teaching that, you know, we are doing? Because how relevant is the training that's going on in our universities in contrast to how quickly the world is shifting? So yeah, lots of thoughts are going through my mind, and I'm keen to hear what other people have to say. And we also have systemic issues. So there's issues around access and success. So how do we navigate all of that? Yeah, so I'll bring it back to you, Shalene, and hear what others think.
So how do we navigate all of that? Theo is talking about the academy just in time, but Natasha's, Sharon is talking about, you know, the systemic issues. How do we navigate all of that? So Natasha Winkler is asking, you know, to the academics on the call, to what extent is personal mastery incorporated in the curriculum? Learning about yourself, others, developing EQ. So whilst the academics on the call is thinking about a response, I'm going to ask Ashley to unmute himself, and he's got his hand raised up.
So herself, thanks, Shalene. So, I mean, speaking from an academic higher education perspective, one of the shifts has really been around graduate attributes, which, you know, links to what you're talking about. So the fact that yes, there's a professional training element to it, less so maybe in the undergrad program, but more so as you move towards postgrad, or if you have, you know, aspirations of going the professional route, be it psychometry or IOP. But I think the personal or the behavioral competency or personal mastery aspect of it has to be interwoven. You know, it has to be almost like a way of being, who you are as you bring yourself to these studies and as you engage actually with your career. Because I don't know, there's also still this graduate mentality that the career crafting only starts once I've graduated, and then where are the jobs becomes the next question. So instead of what is it that I can contribute, what is it that I'm bringing, it's a confidence, competence thing sometimes as well. Because I don't know, there's maybe an underlying assumption that by master's level, you would have already gained enough confidence to feel like you can work in any area, where I think from working with, you know, some of the unemployed IOP grads, you start seeing that you know, the internship influences the way, the trajectory of their career, and how confident people feel about being able to work differently. But I think just from a curriculum perspective, it is quite true, you know, it can't just be an academic program. It has to be practical. It has to be relatable. That's also the other thing when we talk about decolonizing perhaps what IOP has been perceived as, never mind, you know, higher education and psychology and all of that. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. But I think the importance of things like work integrated learning at an undergrad level, the neglected degrees sometimes, because we're so focused on the professionalization elements of honors and masters. So yeah, let me leave it there for now.
Thank you, Ashley. And I think that's not, you know, that's something that's always resurfacing as a concern, you know. How do we get, and that's, you know, I think that's linked to the systemic issues. How do we get that work integrated learning? Rochelle, you've got your hand up.
Hi, good morning, Charlene. Thank you so much. I'm hoping you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we can.
Perfect, thank you. I noted on the comments in text that the conversation that we're having at the moment is so necessary. I believe that the need for us all to cross-skill ourselves has become, perhaps now more than ever, an absolute must-do. So to answer the question around the capabilities from an education, training, development, I don't think a 2-minute session is necessarily going to be the best way for us to try and fix that. But I am hearing and reading through the commentary that there is a plethora of information from our colleagues that have come through the convention that perhaps we can tap into. In my experience, what I am finding as a lack is that our higher education institutions are perhaps not accommodating enough in our curriculum this cross-skilling element. So for example, the counseling piece of a psychologist, whether you're an IO psychologist, a general psychologist, except maybe a research psychologist, people look at you and see you as a psychologist, but we question our own competence as counselors because there may be a lack in the academic piece from a theoretical academic learning. And then that translates into a further lack because our internship programs aren't necessarily governed, unless, of course, you want to specialize in counseling psychology, to have a greater degree of as part of the internship. So my suggestion would be, and I'm sure this is already being done in several work streams, to have a relook at our curriculum from an academic point of view, and perhaps then to facilitate in the internship program a greater degree to talking to the implementation of those skills in the internship. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's really great. And I see quite a few comments, you know, talking about, Theo makes a comment, which I really like, you know, bring all ETD stakeholders together to brainstorm who we can contribute and, you know, what we can, who can contribute what and how. Also, Natasha says that there's already a list of skills, you know, and maybe some of the practitioners can actually help in the academy, through an academy, you know, like quick, you know, an introduction to AI, introduction to people analytics, you know, module, because practitioners at work, in the workplace, they use it all the time. You know, because we are forced as workplace practitioners to lead with data in the business, because in the business, you know, context, our leaders are not going to accept soft reporting anymore. So we have to produce hard facts to demonstrate, you know, our worth and more evidence-based in the workplace. So maybe there's, you know, there is that opportunity. So what I would like to, which is a nice segue into the next slide and into how we close the session actually. So by closing the session, what I wanted to ask, you know, definitely we would love to collaborate. We would love to talk to the ETD, to the academics, you know. I know personally I have maybe 1 or 2 contacts at universities. I see contacts like Carl and contacts like Crystal, you know, and Marita but I think it would be really great if we can have a professor or an academic to help us, you know, set up these kinds of conversations. So, and that collaboration is so important. So this is a moment for you to, you know, confirm in the chat or, you know, reach out to me privately in the chat to say, contact me, you know, give us a thumbs up. It's okay for us to contact you so that, you know, this doesn't end here. This conversation doesn't end here. But I see Jenna's hand is up. Jenna, do you want to comment?
So we've been experiencing, because I'm part of the IGCCP, where we talk to the students in a mentoring capacity. And you do feel that they absorb the information so much from people who are experienced and have gone through it. And I just think there's a big gap that we found in the education side, that the mentors come in and they provide that experience that the students really appreciate. And I do think that's an amazing thing that SciOpsa has started, so that students do feel the progression, they see it and they understand it, and I think it's great.
I see Beatrice answered my question. So it's a very simple question. How do we take this forward? And Beatrice says that SciOpsa has the HOD forum where the discussion, there are HODs here, and I've also been part of that. You know, is that the only forum?
No.
Does that forum give us all the answers we need?
Yeah, Sharon also mentioned it. So I think purely from the HOD forum, that's sort of like speaking to the universities, or at least one of their service providers. So there might be some other sort of like interest groups or service providers that are not part of the HOD forum, which is only for universities offering training in industrial psychology. So yeah, so that's one option, but it's not the only one, yeah.
Oops, sorry, I'm talking while I'm on mute. I see Crystal's hand and Sharon Munyaka's hand is up. That's a good question. Yeah.
Beatrice said what I wanted to say, because I serve on the HOD forum. So we do discuss all these issues because that's a representation of all the universities. But we need, and we also collaborate with the HPCSA, which is another stakeholder. But one stakeholder that is typically missing, that's crucial for this game, is the higher education division. And that's what we need to add to this conversation to gain momentum for this.
Yeah. And Crystal, how do you propose we go about, you know, reaching out to the higher education?
Yeah, this is not going to be an easy one, but I don't think it's impossible to do. We just need to make contact with them and invite them to these conversations. Maybe we should have a joint meeting between at least the four major role players: universities, HPCSA, DHET, well, three main role players, and then take it from there. And then maybe also invite your team to come and present your findings and then propose a way forward. Because I think, you know, talk is cheap. We can talk as much as we like, as long as we have not actually identified a particular project and have started that project with a project owner and sponsor, we're not really going to make any progress as a collective. We do make progress at different universities where we are obviously different levels of maturity as far as this is concerned. But if we want to kind of gain the momentum that we want to, then we will have to involve them and actually just assign basic responsibilities and projects.
Yeah. Sharon, your hand is up.
Yes, thanks, Charlene. And I agree with what Crystal and the other colleagues are saying. We can use existing channels. I think part of the challenge is we keep splitting hairs by having these little forums. So using an existing vehicle and then maybe having special sessions, so like the breakfast that Ashley is suggesting, and have proper questions that we're wanting to answer. So if we have a focused agenda, get the right people in the room, all of us as a collective have someone who can point us in the right direction in terms of who else needs to be sitting around the table. I think that's how we get stuff going. We've got the material, we've been asking the question. Now we need to move beyond the rhetoric and say, okay, now we know the training that needs to be done. I know someone who's a specialist in this area. Are you interested in pulling together a program via the academy, for example, and then just do it? You know, so we don't have to wait for magic. We are magic. We're doing it already.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Are there any other comments? I see Natasha Winkler.
Sorry, Shalene, not to belabor the point, but again, I think we have to be very mindful that academia has a mandate, and we all know the process of putting curriculums together and getting that approved, etc. And this conversation has been going on so long. And now we're making proposals, and again, we are at the HOD Forum and the Department of Higher Education and HPSCSA, and I'm not hearing anyone mentioning the professional society role, you know, as a stakeholder. I'm not hearing private service providers and training providers. So I just want us to encourage to make this very collaborative. We can't just look at universities, because again, that is knowledge and qualification. We're really talking more here about applied skills development as well. So let's not forget that angle.
Thanks, Natasha. So I think there's a, you know, if Natasha Stark, you can put the, I think we can put the presentation away, and then sometimes it's just nice to connect. If you want to put we've got 4 minutes really just to greet each other, you know, if you want to look into my eyes, put your camera on, or Theo's eyes. This is a moment. Let's take a pic for LinkedIn or somewhere. So please put your cameras on. Let's take a screenshot. There's a lot of cameras not on, but it's okay. Taking a screenshot. Let's take some screenshots. Ashley, you next to me, but your camera's not on. Your hand is up. Fantastic. Carol, lovely to see you. Just think about a face-to-face conference. We would have been posing, and I know Natasha would have done something weird for a face-to-face pic. So let's take a screenshot. Larato, Tams, and Avi, you all on my screen. Claudine, Sadika, Nonchalanchla, Ramona, Avi. Let's take a pic. We never have moments for these pictures and memories. And I know, Carol, you used to like memory making at conferences. So that's important, you know, because that builds connection and it builds relationships. And I think when we can build effective relationships, we can actually get this thing off the ground. So, where's Natasha Novia? Okay. Natasha,
I have to go open the door for the next session.
Yes, let's take the picture. Yeah, everyone. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, Shalene, we have to start wrapping up.
Yes.
Do you want to make a concluding comment, and I can make one as we depart?
I think, Theo, that we've made our comments. You know, we know that we need to there's some action items. I think the actions that I've written down was that, you know, Crystal will help lead the way for us. I've also written down the action that we need to bring all the ETDPs together. You know, we need to collaborate with other HPCSA, SIOPSA universities, and there's some people who's already given their names that who would like to be involved. So yeah. So we have actions. Natasha, myself, and Nanette will go away, write up, you know, some of the findings of this session, and then share that with everyone, and take the next step. It's about action now. Yeah. Petrus, do you want to say something?
Not because I want to have the last word, sorry, but there was a nice project that was identified by your stream in the book in terms of investigating that competency model or competency framework as a research project. So maybe we can just sort of like add it somewhere. I'm not saying it must be, but that's something that can be done sort of like twee vleie met een klap, meaning discussing it with the different service providers, but then bringing in focus groups of students, practitioners, everyone to start getting some collective qualitative data on that proposed competency framework, and then take it one step further. So I don't want that topic to be sort of like stay on the shelf.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Right.
And Beatrice,
yeah.
you will raise it in your session, in the next session. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much, everyone, for a great session
Charlene,
and great engagement.
Yeah. Charlene, sorry, I'm a little bit rude because we have to conclude, but thanks very much to Charlene and Natasha and Lynette for not only for the session, but the work that you've put into the book. Colleagues, what we've got in what this team has done, this team, with this is currently the most comprehensive, up-to-date, relevant capabilities framework for IOPs. And can I add that? I'll sound a little bit like an American, in the world. They looked at aside the PSYOP one, there's one that's been developed, but a much more generic one by the International Union of Psychological Associations. This is by far much more comprehensive, and it covers the full spectrum of who and what a IOP is and should be there at the front line. It's not about what should be trained. It is, if you look at the profile of an IOP, this is what this person must be able to do. So really compliments to the team. We got a brilliant, excellent base from which he can work here. Let's not let this opportunity pass us by. Thank you very much for attending the session, and let's see some fireworks here, please, Charlene.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Thanks,
indicated
everyone.
their
Bye-bye.
willingness to contribute. Thank you.